Salam, lads.
How's
Welcome.
everybody doing?
Salam. Salam alaikum.
Salam.
What you were saying about the vaccines reminds me of something that I seen a few years ago. I remember seeing something about it's on Instagram. They believe that there's a particular gene in it that is responsible for being conscious of God or not, and that they believe that they can like take that gene out using these vaccines.
Yeah, we were talking about that just before you got here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! All right, all right.
The vaccine, like the word etymologically comes from the word for cattle in Latin, and it kind of reminds me too how they
Sound
isn't it vacus, right? Is cattle
I would think you're correct about that.
because the very first uh, vaccine was I think in the late 1800s, and it was used for cowpox, so they had to test it on cows. And that's where they got up the word vaca, yeah, for that. Even like the word baqara is kind of like just happens to be related to that too. But it reminds me of how they say that they put the Jews on cattle cars, right, riding them into the camp, and so much of the whole Quran it just dwells on how humans are likened to cattle because they seem to earn this position somehow in the end. Like now you kind of use like symbolic similarities, like, well, they don't think, they just go where they do what they're told, they just have no opinion of their own, like sheep. And then I thought about it, like, why is Christianity the only religion that openly glorifies humans being sheep, a
That's so
flock?
funny, man. I was just talking about that too. What's the difference? Literally, what's the difference in a sheep and a cattle? What's the difference? One's smaller.
Yeah. So it's funny because like all of these idioms for sheep are not good. Like and Christianity really just tries to make something kind of painfully obvious that's bad as good. Like lambs or sheep led to a slaughter, or like the Lamb of God, or like Jesus is a good shepherd, or the Pope or whatever. It's kind of funny because the way I can kind of see the world unraveling at the moment is just everything sucks, every ideology is bad, and just Christianity is just not as bad. It's the only possible replacement for all the other ones, all the other beliefs.
It's funny because I remember it stood out to me a lot uh, from when I used to go to church as a kid, or I get dragged to these like rock and roll churches or whatever, and they were like going off about the whole lamb thing. And they're like, the thing about the lamb is it lets itself be slaughtered. And then we were talking about this exact same thing, the sheep and cattle thing, and it got me thinking about this whole right. Like, let's just say you have this Jesus
Hmm.
guy,
Hmm.
and he's like, well, I gave up my life for you. Wouldn't you do the same type
Right.
thing or something? It's just like you can just kind of see how I don't know, man. Like we don't even. I guess it's just on an individual basis, like how deep that conditioning actually goes. But it's clear what the aim is.
It speaks to a certain tendency of people to, I mean, it's probably like, I guess it bleeds into all other kinds of things, but, you know, I think that there is something like of an origin to, like, if you were to, I don't know, like think about it, right? Like a lamb is a immature offspring of a sheep, right? It's basically a child for a sheep. And that's what's slaughtered, a child. Not just like, an adult or mature one. Because,
Like a really cute one.
yeah, I'm not saying like arguing a vegan thing here. I'm just trying to show the symbolism of that because everywhere, pretty much, I think like at the museum the other day, in like the medieval kind of section, I counted like 8 or 9 different sculptures of a virgin with a little baby. Basically the same thing every single time. And I thought to myself, like, is this really like just the most pervasive possible memory of Jesus, or like Isa from the Quran, where like it says that she was carrying him. It doesn't even say that she was pregnant, just that she's carrying him. Like all those paintings, all the sculptures. Like, did they really try to crucify a child, whatever that means? Because like maybe that's just like his purpose, is he's just like kind of this like little man inside like a child's, like very wise, very intellectual, very sufficient, like even in the Bible and stuff, it's like, he was teaching like the rabbis about the religion. It's like he was like 8 years old or something, right? And like his entire life is all miraculous. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me why the Quran just tries to like use him as like kind of what Pharaoh would be in the past, as like a son of God or something, because he's so like charmed his entire life. There's even a scene in the movie I remember where like it was just called Mother too, which is interesting, and it's pretty disgusting. But yeah, I mean, it basically revolves around like a Christian cult that it's exactly what they would take the lamb, not the sheep, as a sacrifice. And basically, like if you think about like the adult Jesus, it's like that would make more sense to me, that that's about the Prophet Muhammad, because even if he grew to the same size, adulthood and whatnot, I mean, the most recent possible memory of anyone that could have possibly influenced the world on that level, even today they say like the Prophet Muhammad is the most influential person in the world. I mean, it just wouldn't surprise me if he has some kind of similarity in appearance or something to what people call Jesus Christ. Like the person on the cross, they're like, oh, this is great, he died for us. We love this idea that like they go in front of the crucifix. Even when I was a kid, and it's just the most beautiful thing to them. Like it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Like there is a mention in the Quran of like how that exact punishment with some other details is for those who corrupt the world, right? Corrupt the earth, actually. So what if like maybe Shaitan does have this like kind of angelic appearance, kind of like Jesus in the Bible, and eventually he does get like punished in front of the world because of his crimes, like massive crimes, like Prometheus. He's just chained, and just he has like this eagle just eating from him, right? Just like the Quran says, there's a person that's hanged or crucified, and there's a bird eating from him or something, because he corrupted the earth. Or it's like eating his liver. He's basically chained to a rock, kind of like Lucifer. I don't know. I find these ideas very interesting, because it wouldn't make sense to me
Those make
that
a lot of sense, actually.
like a messenger is going to be actually just killed and humiliated and disgraced and spat on and whipped, and like it doesn't make sense. I thought it was always wrong, the whole Passion of the Christ film and stuff. Like,
Yeah, what's really wrong too is the idea that the creator, like, this is his actual son, offspring, and
yeah,
he's just like gonna let it happen.
yeah. John 3:18, John 3:16. Yeah, insane. Like when you go to like Surah Al-Ikhlas, it says something like he could not have begotten, nor could he have been begotten. He could not begin, meaning the possibility is off the table, let alone the actual like manifestation of it. It's just maybe what they'll do in the future is all of these kind of I don't know. I kind of question how humans maybe they subconsciously don't know what's going on and just kind of used. But there's a lot of things in there that they clearly covered up with the square brackets and the added punctuations to cover up what the Quran is saying. Because if you're not a believer, if you're not a monotheist, right, it'll look like something like Christianity to you. Like Allah is not the third of three. Okay? So all it takes is just any Christian just come through to expose their views, trying to show the Quran in support of the Bible, right? See, Allah is part of a Trinity in the Quran. That means He has a son. That means the Trinity is true. That means the Bible's understanding of God's oneness is what the Quran preaches. Imagine how many Muslims, after their scholarship fails them, after they constantly just defend the accusations against the Prophet Muhammad, they defend them, they apologize for them as if they happen. They just have enough, and they're like, let's just follow the Bible. It clearly gives us more answers, right, than nothing. And that's really the problem, is people just want everything explained all at once to be comfortable.
I mean, they're pretty much already doing that anyway. Yeah. It's funny because I have this Christian friend. He's working with me, and I gave him a Quran, and we talk about it all the time.
Right.
And it's like he's got basically no problem understanding pretty much everything, right? Like we have very deep, conversations like we'd be having. We're talking about the same stuff, and the one thing he cannot fucking get his mind around is that the Torah and Injil are not the Bible,
Right.
And it's like he gets everything else. Oh, the flat Earth thing, the idea of even the cosmology, everything else. Oh, the history's fake. Okay, but it's
wow,
he can't get past that one thing, and he keeps bringing it up, and he's like, "Don't ever let." What did he say? He's like, I just don't ever think you should ever let anyone talk you into illiteracy. And I'm like, I'm not illiterate of these other things. I know what they say.
The history is fake. I mean, when I say fake, I mean just completely misleading, completely kind of generated to give you a totally false sense of reality. I mean, if that's tampered with, how could you possibly trust something that upholds that? It upholds it completely. Oh, we had, see the prophecy of Daniel, there was Babylon, and then there was Greece, and then there was Rome. And it's interesting. There's a lot of the kind of Tartaria people that they still maintain the whole, I don't know, attachment to Christianity, even though that would mean, if all the churches are generators, right? Power stations or whatever. What are you supposed to take from that? How could there be anything left at that point?
You want to hear something funny, bro? That guy O, that I think I invited him into this very group, one of these groups anyway, because he was just interested, whatever. But he's one of those guys, right? It's he's like, well, I follow the Bible, but you're like, how do you follow the Bible? And then you think that the Bible, it's like you run into these people all the time where they're like, well, this shit is just like Egyptian. And you're like,
right.
Okay, so why are you, so you're following it even though it's weird. Anyway, that guy today, I saw him at the farmer's market, and he was, I'm not even joking, completely dressed like a clown, like a literal clown.
What?
Yeah. God, I hope he's not in the chat.
Yeah, I just can't wrap my mind around how if you're a Muslim, right, and you take the Quran as holy, divine word of God, then why is it hard to believe that the opposition is anything but an opposition? Why would you need God to have also revealed something of the New Testament, the Old Testament? Oh, it's just corrupted. somewhere in there, but it's corrupted. I think this will be kind of easily used if they have something like a 19 code where it can say, see, now we know where the Quran is because there's so many recitations, and using the 19 code, we can make a Frankenstein Quran that just, has all the right places. And then with that, we just translate that, whatever, however we got it, so we can find out which parts of the Bible are true, because the Bible also has a number code in there. It's like 19666 code. And then we can find the Torah and the Injil at that point. And then we can all be happy and, just, it's all one God, clearly, right? One God, three persons, one God, three books, and it's just, they're just, there couldn't have been a way that they explain how, like, just, there's just no change in how the revelation is, like, if I were to scour the internet, okay, what is something that clearly is just incomparable as a text reading material that has just inexplicable choices in there, like beyond logic even. Yet somehow there's just no opposition to it. There's no way to debunk it, no way to actually like honestly and sincerely challenge it, right? So the Quran is the only thing that fits that category. Like everything else is written like linearly, like a human would.
It's funny, and this kind of makes me think, right? Like this person is all like, they said something like, they're like, yeah, I don't think the government even knows what these UFOs are. I'm like, they know what they are, dude. And they're like, and this is a Christian person, right? Like a quote unquote Christian person, total degenerate, by the way. But this person was like, they're like, okay, well, whatever you want to call them, they're jinn with a D, and and whatever, maybe they're made of smokeless fire, or whatever. I'm like, you think these people don't know what jinn are? And I'm like,
Right.
and I'm like, look, okay, you got Project Paperclip, or you got basically the space program and Disney show up at the same time. They're the same people.
Right.
How many fucking Disney movies are about jinn? You think they don't know about jinn? And they're like, well, we don't even know what they are. And I'm like, well, yeah, because you've never touched the Quran, so you don't even. It's like, oh,
Right.
well, aside from what they said, aside from some obscure religious text. I'm like, did you seriously just call the Quran obscure? So it's like, yeah, what do you have to draw on, like any kind of knowledge about any of that stuff? If you won't even look. It's the Christianity thing. It really does make sense that it's paving the way for this alien worship.
Yeah, because there's no terminology in the biblical understanding for jinn whatsoever. There's no terminology for heaven, except like within the dunya in Judaism, even Christianity. Everything is just very vague, very kind of obscured. Like, oh, they're just angels and demons, right? That's what the Quran exposes the disbelievers as saying. They see the angels as female because basically most of the jinn appear to be female, and they obey God and they do what they're told. They are just etheric, kind of different. They're non-humans. And then a subset of them appear to be more on the male side, and they're pretty demonic actually. That makes a lot of sense. But they're not angelic in origin. None of them. It's just kind of, that's the thing. Like, angels are just totally degraded in their status completely.
I think the fact that the Quran is like the only thing basically drawing a comparison between, jinn and ins. That's
Yeah.
like that's like one of the main most important things. It's like, because these people, like, they're so mystified by these creatures that they ascribe all kinds of status to them. Like, oh, they come from different planets. They're more advanced. They're gods. Really, they wrote the Bible. Really, they. It's like, oh, maybe you're right about that. But, oh man, hold on one second. Okay, go ahead.
Well, they clearly outnumber us. They clearly had been here longer. So all the things that we're kind of taught to value in society, like, oh, this person is is knowledgeable. They're very intellectual. They know more than you. This person is a professional. This person can very strong, very like these are all superficial qualities that do not dictate anything about what's true actually. Like it's kind of humbling to know that in history, jinn are meant to serve humans. That's part of their like not just directly, but a lot of times directly. And that's kind of like echoes the whole story with Adam and the Malaika that they just okay submit. So why would that? It could be actually that they got the idea to make Shaitan an angel from the Quran because somebody reading that just casually, it's not really casual reading something like the Quran. It's very precise, decisive speech, right? So they would come to the understanding, oh yeah, he's an angel. Like pretty much every Quranist, pretty much uh, all of the Sunni scholarship of any value, which is all fake by the way too. Like there's no way that you can show an original actual book from any of these scholars unless it's a copy that's just scribbled together. And the Christians obviously agree. I don't know what the Jews really believe in. They don't even see Shaitan as an enemy, so it's very, sketchy. And then all the other ones, they basically deny his existence entirely, or take him as one of their kind of pantheon, like Shiva.
I think the biggest problem is the dualism. There's a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of this idea that like basically, Shaitan is like the yin yang to Allah, which is like super fucking.
You know what
That's
I
Zoroastrianism.
yeah, I heard that from this like African American lady on TikTok or something, and man, it was hard to stomach, but it's like you're seeing more of this like casual shirk, and she was saying that, oh, Satan, the devil, is actually your low consciousness, and God is your high consciousness, and Jesus is like the intermediary in between that. So if you accept Christ, he's not a person, he's a consciousness. So you can go to like either high God consciousness, like how they say Christ consciousness or whatever, or like the lower one, the devil one. So that's what you're describing. Like it's just
Yeah, thanks, David. So it's interesting because one of the last conversations I had with this Christian kid,
yeah,
we were talking about the Kabbalization. Okay, basically like right, it's like, okay, so you see the tree, the world tree. We can see the Quran is talking about a world tree. That's your spine. That's the aleph. And it's like, this is what we were talking about with the echoes. Because I was like, listen, man, all these things, there's some truth to that. Because if Allah decrees something about like the creation, that's going to be echoed through everything, including the human body. But this is why you have to be careful about metaphorizing everything, is because at that point you're taking something like, it's like this huge story, this huge metaphor, and just applying it to something super small like yourself, where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe there is some kind of, I mean, I'm not with the Jesus and the devil thing, but maybe maybe our bodies are a reflection of the world that we live in, where we have a central axis, and the closest thing to the Al-Aqsa would be at the top of our spine and whatever. But it's like that's as far as it goes. After that, you've explained it away, and it's not like it can't be referring to anything else. But I don't know, because I've been thinking about this whole thing with the rebellion, right? Where it's like rebellion for the jinn is individuality, right?
yeah.
And rebellion for humanity is like collectivism.
Yeah.
But in the same way, it's like this collectivism that is also like collectively elevating everybody to this godhood. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I see this shit all the fucking time out here.
Yeah.
It's weird.
What you said is from Surah 79, where like, it's a question: are you a more difficult creation, or is the heaven? So it makes a direct comparison to the system that we live in. Like
bodies are your signs, obviously.
Yeah. Within yourself, and then within your soul.
That doesn't mean like weird. So that's the thing, right? It's all the Kabbalah stuff. It's all about how you know, we are basically, and we are the top of the food chain. We are like one of the probably most interesting creations, but that doesn't mean like, I don't know. That's just something we were talking about recently.
Yeah, kind of.
Metaphorizing stuff makes it actually, it's part of the whole shirk thing to make everything smaller, shrinking.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just inaccurate and oversimplification, really. I mean, I think people confuse like something being straightforward and explicit with something being simplistic, you know? I mean, you just you can study anything in the world, like nature, whatnot, and you just have endless inquiries and conclusions. But yet, it's such a, just it's like about one thing. So that doesn't preclude things from being intricate, because it would have to be if you have an infinite Lord that is just conscious of everything and designing and controlling and putting in the support systems to manage everything. Like, and I think of it like angels, or even maybe some jinn, in the sense that like they have tasks that are fundamental to sustaining the universe because they're obedient. Like they just, it just makes sense. Like the whole we all the time is just is very present, because Allah is acknowledging there are beings in the creation that facilitate as well entirely. So
Yeah.
to
But then you have the
make
people that are like, but Allah has no helpers.
no, that's the thing. They confuse that. They confuse it. It's like he made those things, so he doesn't need helpers. He made
He
them.
didn't have help making those things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he made those things. It's like I saw a lot of these debates between Sunnis and Christians. Usually, I think they're the biggest. Sometimes Hindus, actually. And the biggest thing for them is like, okay, how does God enter the creation, right? Because just by virtue of it, he would just collapse it, like that would be it. So he didn't make the creation within it because it had to come into existence. So maybe one of the big deceptions that already kind of exists in the future is that the universe just always existed. That's something they kind of say in Kabbalah a lot, where like you just have this like primordial space or universe, and it just kind of exploded. This is kind of where the Big Bang comes from, partially, also from a Jesuit priest. But they say like, oh, so the God kind of came out of the whatever primordial creation or something. And Gnosticism, they believe the same thing, that angels are part of God, really. So
Hinduism.
same thing, yeah.
Hinduism, I was just thinking about this the other day. They have the story about the Rakshasa, the demons, and they're like, they literally like say that like Brahma was just chilling, and this thing just popped out of his chest and started attacking him, and that's why they're called that, because it means like something to protect against or something. But I think that it has to do with dualism too, because it's like
Yeah.
the idea that the idea that the universe is in a constant state of opening and closing is, I think, central to, I mean, in Hinduism for sure, because it's like they have an end of the world, but then it's like then the world just resets and you go through the same fucking bullshit again. And then that's because that raises such a huge question. Then they had to invent Buddhism to be like, oh, well, but you can get out. And it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like in the kind of Trinity doctrine, basically the Holy Spirit is God, right? That always kind of puzzled me because, well, the Holy Spirit is separately God.
Then who's the Father?
You have, usually most of the kind of that doctrine, they call it Mysterianism, which is like they just affirm it's just a mystery. You can't explain it, but you have to believe it, right?
Just
So
coping with the fact that it doesn't make sense.
yeah, but like, why would they come up with that idea? Why the Holy Spirit of all things? Why, Jibril, basically? And Islam doesn't actually have a problem with those elements at all. So it just takes somebody to just draw the lines for them. Here's the triangle now. Okay? Jesus, Jibril, Allah. So imagine a world where like they just have like 2.0 on the Sunni stuff or Shia, because in Shiism they have like I read a tweet from the supreme leader of Iran he posted in 2019 on Christmas Day, on 25th of December. By the way, it is completely against Islam to deny the what do they call them? Infallibility of Jesus and his mother, peace be upon him. Okay? So obviously saying that towards a Christian audience to keep ties always, right? Like we have to appease these people or something. But I think it's very dangerous because you're giving human beings complete like ineffable status, like they're angels or something, right? They're demigods, basically. They're gods at that point, right? So how much of a leap is it if prophets, if Jesus, if Mary are infallible? Everything they did was like that would mean they have to have godlike knowledge, right? Like even on Speaker's Corner, be like, okay, so if the Father knows everything, the Son knows everything, what would they talk about in the Bible? What they know everything? What would the conversation be then, right? So what would be the point of Muslims insisting that every single prophet is infallible when the Quran gives you the most human side of them? They're not. They have to be. They cannot be followed if they're infallible. That's the whole point. They can only be worshipped if they're infallible.
It kind of makes sense why not all of the prophets, not all of the Nabiyyin were given like the same kind of like clear ayat that like
Right.
Isa was given, because you can kind of see this pattern of like, it's like if you just showed up in the park and you were like, look, will you believe? Look, I'm going to bring a table out of the sky. Do you believe now? It's like that kind of, honestly, because people are so like desensitized to shirk, that it just kind of would drive people to, worship you or something. Even if you leave, like let's say you're there for a couple of days, you perform some miracles, and then you left. It's like, well, people are going to keep talking about it, and we see like even with people like the Rebbe Mendel Schneerson, how they're like, yeah, it's like he's like dead, and people are still over here like, oh well, he was the Mashiach, and like, now we know we're upon the right path because we're following him or whatever. But it's like, I feel like people have a huge capability for that, especially now, as like the more time goes on, maybe that it kind of makes sense that not all the prophets were even given that, because it says all the time like, even when you give them a sign, like they don't believe.
And honestly, as time goes on, humans, they succumb to corruption more and more. So they couldn't possibly attain the same sophistication as their ancestors. That's kind of clear. And actually, it makes a lot of sense that that's a mercy, because people that are more down the line in the timeline they're just not gonna be equipped just genetically to handle what their ancestors had. So even if they were given it, they would just instantly corrupt like even further than their ancestors, because it's just part of like the nature of copying Adam over and over and over and over again. It's kind of like if today, right? If you just like had the world from 1,000 years ago, whatever it was, people will just like, they sell out for less, like nothing. They sell for nothing today. Okay, they have nothing compared to the past. Imagine if they saw their ancestors walking around, what they had, what they built, because already people are already like claiming these things that they think their ancestors built, usually, and they have a totally wrong context to these, just the architecture even, right? Imagine when if they were to see the thing in action, like even if there were jinn around to just do work for you, like, hey, I want a piano, or can you, bring me my food or something from across the city or something. They would lose their minds. They would take advantage so quickly. And so maybe there is a knowledge, there's a wisdom to how over time ayahs just become forgotten. They just become like part of the unseen, so that you have a perfect symmetry from the origin where everything was given to Adam. Everything. Now it's just the Quran. The Quran is the only miracle that you can point to and hold and look at, because there's no explanation how it came to us. We just have a BS story about its compilation, about all the people involved, there's no way. Like, how could we have a more accurate Quran now than the first time? Like in the very beginning of when they started to write it down with human hands and all the fallibility of humans, even the memorizing and everything. Even like the history has clues of how they encoded the truth, right? Like, apparently the first Quran was the first, like, they call it the master compilation, okay? It was under Uthman's caliphate, which is Ottoman caliphate, and it was under the custodianship of Hafsa, one of the widows of the Prophet Muhammad. Her name's Hafsa. And that's how they actually standardized it when Uthman burned all the fake recitations that were written down as Qurans. So here's the problem in the official history. From the very beginning, people had fake recitations, fake Qurans, and they wrote them down, and they're like, okay, this is not the Quran. Imagine, like, he's praised for doing that, but if you say that today, when we have a similar issue, right? You have, like, Jay Smith or someone tell you, like, thousands and thousands of changes and errors in the Qurans, and 38,000 Qurans, whatever, 6 gorillion, differences. Well, that's the whole thing. Why can't they just be honest and say, nope, that's a lie? They can't. They know what they're doing. They made the straw man of this, whatever, Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah religion, so they can throw the whole thing out. The Quran, Hadith, the Thawbs, the Sheikhs, the mullahs in Iran. All of the strikes on Iran are because of regime change, which is why Israel secretly called the operation Rising Lion, which is the old flag of the Shah in Iran, as like a sword in it. So it just makes sense to me that, like, they're getting the world to vilify Islam on a fundamental level, like using the Quran as the the most disrespected, disregarded, just underappreciated possible information source ever. Because why would you look at the people that follow it? They're satanic. Why would this is the book that led to that, even though they never read it. They never take anything from it. And apparently the Quran needs the Hadith to explain it, because it's so vague, it's so general, it's like contradicts everything. Like, everything is against it, basically. They'll get NASA to say that the crucifixion happened, okay, at the time it happened in the Bible. They'll do tests on the Shroud of Turin to say, yep, that's Jesus' face. See? They'll get some Korean guy with the highest IQ in the world to say, yep, Jesus Christ is God. Anything to validate the Bible. But the Quran, it's just an incoherent book. It kind of gets to you sometimes, but you just have to be patient. Even like the Hyperborea kind of Tartaria people and everything, they're entranced by this knowledge that's clearly leaked on purpose to the public at a critical time. Hey, by the way, there's this big black mountain, and that's where paradise is. That's where the Garden of Eden is. And we're just like on this flat earth. We just have to go there, and we just have to like live forever, blah, blah, blah. And there's these people that are like very like light-haired and beautiful and tall, and the whole Vril stuff, the whole Nazi stuff. You can see where it's going. Like, they're impressed by the dunya. That's all it is. It makes sense. Like, we don't have a messenger. We don't have jinn. We don't have angels walking around. We don't have anything left from whatever it was that is in our history, like the Quran openly discusses. We don't have access to all the lands that Allah tells you, go travel. Why? The wisdom behind it has to be like, this is just some massive filtering of people. Massive. Like they talk about in Christianity, like the wheat and the chaff or whatever. It's got to be, because how could you honestly test people now, right? In a way, like, unless they really just, if they only had the Quran, would they actually believe in it? Unequivocally. Or do they need something next to it? They need something tied to it. They need something extra, right? That seems to be the biggest divide.